Fraser, so we know the Manitoba Metis Federation boycotted the meeting because the Métis Nation of Ontario was there. How did the participants address this?
Well, to be honest, it was really kind of a non-issue. Of course, the Métis Nation of Ontario and Métis Nation of Alberta, both Margaret Froh and Andrew Sandbar, both sort of support the Métis Nation of Ontario being there. So they were, said it's really the choice of the MMF to do this, and they both recognize, of course, that organization. Also, and the federal government has, has in recent years recognized the Métis Nation of Ontario. So, of course, they're open to meeting with the MMF, but that's about all that was said about that particular issue.
Okay. And what was the general mood coming out of the meeting? Did the Métis leaders seem happy with what transpired?
Yeah, they really did. I think they're, typically, and as you know, in the history that the federal government always has, it's been really provincial governments have recognized Métis governments, so they've, that continues this on. So I think they're very happy to be part of this agreement, and it just kind of shows, I think they're interested in any sort of economic development money they can get as part of these projects that the Prime Minister has talked about. So they generally very receptive to Bill C-5, much more so than First Nations, or some First Nations anyway, and they want to clearly work with the government on this.
That's interesting. So, Fraser, what happens now? Do we have any idea where the Indigenous Advisory Council will be set up and who will sit on it?
Not really. They of course, they have committed. The Prime Minister's committed to setting this up by Labor Day, so that's quite soon. We're talking in a few weeks or so. Both Minister Alty, the Crown Indigenous Relations Minister, and Minister Galmasti, both who is obviously the Indigenous Services Minister, didn't really say too many details, so they're keeping it pretty tight-lipped for now. But they said there will be details forthcoming on that council in the coming weeks.
Okay. And why were some organizations invited as observers instead of participants, like the Métis Nation of BC and the Métis National Council?
Right. Yeah, it's kind of funny. They made, we just talked about the Métis Manitoba Federation, being invited, but deciding not to participate because of other the Métis Nation of Ontario being invited. But it was really the Métis National Council was invited as an observer, but I think most of the Métis governments are fine with that, and the organization itself, it's kind of represents all Métis governments in Canada. And I think they were perfectly fine being an observer status. But the real kind of sort of hitch in this whole thing was the Métis Nation of BC, that clearly the government does not want to recognize. We did pose this question to Minister Alty, and she simply said they haven't met Section 35 standard yet as an Indigenous government. I know there are some court challenges, but the interesting thing on their recognition going on that others have written about, but the interesting thing is they were part of the Métis National Council, as you know, until recently, so clearly they were recognized by bodies that the government recognized in the National Council, and yet that doesn't seem to be good enough for Ottawa at this point, so we'll have to see what happens down the road. I think we'll probably hear from the Métis Nation of BC more on this, because they did issue a press release that they were, they were invited as an observer, but very disappointed in that, and so decided not to participate.
Okay. Well, we'll need to leave it there, Fraser, but thank you so much for shedding some light on this for us.
Thank you.